Neste momento, chamamos o secretário de Estado do MRE da Mongólia, Munkitusi Lanajav.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to extend my sincere gratitude to the government of Brazil for gathering us here in Belém and hosting the COP30 in the spirit of global mutirao. The Amazon forests surround us as a living testament to nature's resilience and a reminder of its fragility. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, opening the third nationally determined contributions committed period. These milestones remind us to transform the promises of Paris and the ambitions of Glasgow into tangible results. We must move from pledge to progress, from rhetoric to regeneration. Now is the time for action, unity, and accountability. Mongolia was among the first countries to ratify the Paris Agreement in 2016 and pledged to be part of the global solution. Today, we reaffirm and elevate the commitment through our new NDC 3.0. By 2035, we aim to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by over 30%, and we further aim to push that reduction to more than 50% by concrete commitments in the energy, transportation, construction, food and agriculture sectors. We have integrated land restoration, sustainable herding practices, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Today, developing countries face serious challenges like high debt levels, budget constraints, and limited financial resources which hinder their ability to meet climate commitments. We must also be mindful that adaptation is not a secondary concern, but a development imperative, especially for landlocked and climate-vulnerable nations. As such, Mongolia calls on all countries to embed nature-positive approaches in their national development plans and to recognize land restoration as a dual solution for both mitigation and adaptation. This includes scaling up finance for adaptation, protecting biodiversity, and ensuring that indigenous and rural communities are central to decision-making in a true spirit of global mutirao. For Mongolia, achieving our Paris Agreement goals will require financing equivalent to about 50% of our total GDP. To mobilize these resources, we are pursuing legal and economic reforms to create a favorable environment for investment in renewable energy, green agriculture, and forestry. Within the framework of our Billions of Trees national movement, Mongolia has expanded international cooperation and established the permanent financing mechanism for nature conservation called Eternal Mongolia. According to UN Women, failure to meet global climate targets by 2050 could push 160 million more women and girls into poverty, while 240 million could face food insecurity. In response, Mongolia hosted the World Women Entrepreneurs Forum Towards Green Future in August this year and adopted Ulaanbaatar Declaration Towards a Sustainable Future, calling for greater participation and leadership of women in climate action. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in 2026, Mongolia will host the 17th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, as well as observe the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. I cordially invite you all to participate at the highest level with broader representation in the 17th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, scheduled on 17th to 18th of August 2016 in Mongolia. This conference seeks comprehensive solutions to adapt to climate change, protect and enhance water resources, and combat desertification and land degradation. As a country deeply shaped by vast rangelands and nomadic heritage, Mongolia recognizes that land is not only a source of livelihood, but also frontline in the fight against climate change. At the COP30, in partnership with the United Nations, we are preparing to launch the Rangeland Flagship Initiative. This initiative will unite knowledge, investment, and technology, including AI-powered monitoring, to unlock the carbon sequestration potential of our landscapes. This initiative will also promote investment and livelihoods in over 100 pastoral nations, benefiting nearly 500 million people. We warmly invite you to join us in supporting and collaborating on this important endeavor. Distinguished delegates, Mongolia calls all nations to embed nature-positive approaches in national development plans, drawing from its own leadership in climate adaptation and the momentum of this COP30 in Berlin. Let us act with courage and unity to protect our planet and work together for a future of harmony, resilience, and peace. Let the sacred Bayami of Berlin inspire our resolve and action. I thank you. Obrigado.
Nesse momento, convido o representante do Nepal, o secretário do Ministério de Florestas e Meio Ambiente, Rajendra Prasad Mishra.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished Head of the States and delegates, at the outset, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to the government and the people of Brazil for your remarkable leadership and warm hospitality in the heart of the Amazon. It is truly symbolic that we gather here exactly 30 years after the Rio Summit and 10th anniversary of Paris Agreement to advance the same global agenda now with urgency for humanity, solidarity, and shared prosperity. Excellencies, Nepal has long been a front runner in upholding nature-friendly systems, advancing climate actions, and environmental stewardship. Nearly 46% of our land remains under forest cover, protected in close partnership with local communities and indigenous people. Nepal is home to Mount Everest, Sagarmatha, mountain and Himalayas hold existential services, support systems, and provide rich biodiversity, clean air, and fresh water to the billions of downstream people. This makes Nepal a vital contributor to sustaining the global climate system. Despite our negligible carbon footprint, Nepal continues to lead through strong policy and action. Our NDC-3 and National Adaptation Plan exemplify our commitment to the Paris Agreement. We are rapidly transitioning toward electric mobility and clean energy, prioritizing the phase out of fossil fuels. Earlier this year, Nepal convened Sagarmatha Samvad, a global dialogue that reaffirmed our shared commitment to the extended multilateralism and to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. This Samvad echoed the COP30 presidency vision of multilateral unity in purpose for all and forever. Excellencies, despite these efforts, Nepal faces escalating climatic crisis in recent years. This year alone, over 300 lives were lost to floods, landslides, droughts, glacial lake outbursts, and forest fires triggered by the temperature extremes. For vulnerable mountain countries like Nepal, the climate crisis is not a longer threat, rather it is a daily reality for all. Excellencies, a decade after Paris Agreement, the evidence is clear. It is delivering, but not at the pace and scale needed. For countries like Nepal, access to finance and technology remains costly and complex. It should be easier and accessible to all. Therefore, COP30 must deliver tangible outcomes, delivering on the roadmap for keeping 1.5 degree on track. The Baku-Belém roadmap for mobilizing $1.3 trillion in climate finance must be realized. Adaptation finance must be tripled and the loss and damage fund must be fully authorized with simplified and direct access for vulnerable countries and alignment with national systems. Excellencies, we no longer have the luxury for delay, and Nepal is committed to align itself with global initiatives to address this urgency. Let us act now together to safeguard our people, their livelihoods and our planet. Thank you. I thank you.
Convidamos para a manifestação a secretária federal do Ministério da Mudança de Clima e do Meio Ambiente do Paquistão, Aisha Umera Moriani.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. I begin by thanking the government and the people of Brazil for their warm hospitality in the beautiful city of Belém and for hosting this critical gathering. Pakistan has continuously drawn attention and spoken of living on the front line of the unfolding climate disaster. We have consistently highlighted climate injustice that constitutes the gravest human rights violation of our time. Tragically, our words were not a prediction but a premonition. In 2022, a super flood submerged a third of our country, causing over $30 billion in losses and damages. We thought it was once in a century calamity. We were wrong. Just 3 years later, in 2025, we have again faced floods of catastrophic magnitude, washing away lives, livelihoods, and the hard-earned progress of the people. Our mountains in the Hindu Kush Karakoram Himalayas region, forming part of the world's third pole, hold more than 13,000 glaciers now melting at unprecedented rates. Recurring glacial lake outburst floods have become an annual nightmare, threatening lives, infrastructure, and fragile ecosystems. This is not a cycle of disaster. This is an accelerating cascade, and we who contribute less than 1% to global emissions are being asked to pay a price we did not incur. This is the stark reality of climate injustice. Yet, Pakistan is not here only to lament this injustice. We are here to lead by example. Guided by our Prime Minister's clear vision, Pakistan is translating ambition into action. We are already on a path of climate resilient development. In NDCs 3.0, we now voluntarily aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 50% by 2035. Of this ambitious target, 17% will be achieved unconditionally through domestic resources and policy measures as compared to 15% in NDCs 2.0, while 33% remain conditional on receiving adequate, primarily grant-based international climate finance, supported by technology transfer and capacity building. The total investment required for NDC implementation stands at 65 billion. For Pakistan, adaptation, resilience, and enhancing the coping capacities of its communities remains the priority. The country has outlined major investment needs across critical areas, including disaster risk preparedness and response, universal water and sanitation, and modernization of irrigation system. Here I would recall what my Prime Minister highlighted in New York Climate Summit, that climate finance is the key to NDC implementation. I reiterate that NDC 3.0 represents our solemn commitment to climate action, and we now call upon industrialized nations to honor their historical responsibility and uphold the principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities. The outcome on the new collective quantified goal in Baku, though not sufficient, could be a first step to meet the trillions required. Therefore, from the front line of this crisis, we demand that we operationalize the loss and damage fund with billions, not millions, and make it immediately accessible to countries like Pakistan without creating a new debt trap. The framework for the global goal on adaptation must include clear indicators for means of implementation, because a goal without finance is merely a wish list. The discussion on just transition at this COP must recognize that for developing nations like Pakistan, it is a pathway to development, not a detour from it. Our transition must be nationally defined, ensuring it lifts our people out of poverty, provide energy crisis, and create sustainable livelihoods, all while aligning with our climate goals. A just transition cannot be just a slogan. It must be a vehicle for equitable development, fully supported by the means of implementation. Baku to Belém roadmap for the 1.3 trillion climate finance goal must prioritize public finance as its core component, ensuring it is easy to access and primarily grant-based, and devoid of any conditionalities that create debt traps for climate-vulnerable countries like Pakistan, which are already drowning in liabilities they did not create. Mr. President, as we gather here to discuss the threat being faced as a result of climate change, we must not forget the suffering of the people from Palestine. The root cause of the ongoing situation in the Middle East is Israel's prolonged illegal occupation of Palestinian territory. Pakistan supports all efforts aimed at ensuring lasting peace and stability in the region. We reiterate the need for the full implementation of the ceasefire, leading to a permanent cessation of hostilities, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, unfettered humanitarian assistance, and reconstruction of Gaza. Mr. President, the pursuit of climate justice can no longer be deferred. It must be realized through fair finance, technology access, and shared responsibility. Pakistan stands ready to lead by example. But our resolve must be met with global responsibility. Let Belém be the COP where we move from excuses to execution, from empty rhetoric to accountable action, guided by the equity and the principles of common but differentiated responsibility. Let us not be remembered as the generation that watched the planet burn, but as the one that had the courage to save it. Thank you.
Neste momento, vamos ouvir a manifestação do vice-ministro do Meio Ambiente do Uruguai, Oscar Capucci.
Excelentísimo señor jefe de Estado, honorables ministros, distinguidas autoridades, representantes de organismos internacionales, señoras y señores. En nombre de la República Oriental del Uruguay, deseo expresar nuestro sincero reconocimiento al Gobierno de la República Federativa de Brasil por la hospitalidad brindada y por la organización de esta trascendental reunión de líderes de la COP30 en Belém, corazón de la Amazonia. Este encuentro nos convoca con una responsabilidad histórica: reafirmar nuestro compromiso colectivo con la acción climática, la justicia ambiental y la solidaridad entre los pueblos. Uruguay reitera su pleno compromiso con la Convención Marco de las Naciones Unidas sobre el Cambio Climático y con el Acuerdo de París, como los instrumentos multilaterales legítimos y esenciales para enfrentar la crisis climática de forma colectiva, inclusiva y basada en la ciencia. En esta instancia decisiva, Uruguay hace un llamado a renovar los compromisos en materia de financiamiento climático, con especial énfasis en la adaptación, incluyendo la definición de una nueva meta colectiva y cuantificada que permita fortalecer la resiliencia de los países más vulnerables. Asimismo, es fundamental brindar claridad y previsibilidad sobre el cumplimiento efectivo de los compromisos financieros de los países desarrollados hacia los países en desarrollo. Las brechas que aún existen en los montos y que en las condiciones preferenciales del financiamiento deben ser abordadas con determinación y sentido de justicia. Uruguay aboga por decisiones firmes y concretas en materia de adaptación, particularmente en lo que respecta al financiamiento y a la implementación de los planes nacionales de adaptación. Estos instrumentos son esenciales para fortalecer la capacidad de los países frente a los impactos del cambio climático y constituyen una expresión tangible de la voluntad política y la solidaridad internacional. Asimismo, creemos indispensable que la COP30 emita un mensaje claro sobre la centralidad de la justicia climática en la toma de decisiones. La transición hacia economía bajas en carbono debe ser justa, equitativa e inclusiva, sin dejar a nadie atrás. La acción climática debe avanzar de la mano de la justicia social, la equidad intergeneracional y la participación plena de las comunidades locales, las juventudes y las mujeres. Excelencias, Uruguay se ha posicionado como un país pionero en la integración de la sostenibilidad ambiental con el desarrollo económico productivo. En el ámbito energético, culminamos con éxito una primera transición energética, transformando la matriz eléctrica gracias a la incorporación temprana y estratégica de energías renovables no convencionales que hoy constituyen la base de un sistema limpio, autóctono y resiliente. Esta transformación fue posible gracias a una política de Estado de largo plazo, sostenida por distintos partidos políticos y acompañada por un clima favorable de la inversión y la innovación. En diciembre del 2024, Uruguay presentó su tercera contribución determinada a nivel nacional, en la que, por primera vez, establece límites absolutos de emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero, consolidando así el compromiso de desacoplar el crecimiento económico del aumento de las emisiones. Estos compromisos están alineados con la estrategia climática de largo plazo al 2050, que define la ruta hacia la neutralidad de carbono mediante el impulso de las renovables, el almacenamiento energético, el hidrógeno verde y la reconversión de procesos industriales hacia fuentes limpias. Junto con la mitigación, la adaptación y la resiliencia son ejes centrales de nuestra política climática. Uruguay desarrolla planes nacionales de adaptación sectoriales con un enfoque participativo y territorial que fortalece nuestras capacidades institucionales y sectoriales. Nuestro país cuenta con una sólida arquitectura de gobernanza ambiental mediante la coordinación interinstitucional, continuidad de las políticas de Estado y participación ciudadana, en consonancia con el Acuerdo de Escazú, articulada por el Sistema Nacional de Respuesta al Cambio Climático. En línea con el llamado de la presidencia de la COP30, Uruguay impulsa la red de gobiernos subnacionales frente al cambio climático, convencido de que la adaptación debe ser soberana, local y profundamente anclada en los territorios. Excelencias, la COP30 debe ser recordada como una COP de decisiones firmes y resultados equilibrados. Uruguay aspira a que en Belén surja un marco integral del Objetivo Mundial de Adaptación con indicadores claros y medios de implementación definidos. Un compromiso renovado de financiamiento para la adaptación que honre y amplíe las promesas de Glasgow. Una decisión robusta sobre el programa de trabajo conjunto de transición justa con un enfoque integral que abarque empleo, juventudes, equidad social y comunidades locales. Y la aprobación de un nuevo plan de género y cambio climático que fortalezca capacidades, promueva la participación de las mujeres y reconozca los impactos diferenciados del cambio climático. El camino hacia una economía carbono neutral y resiliente está trazado y lo recorreremos con justicia climática, justicia social y compromiso con las generaciones futuras. Muchas gracias.
Nesse momento, convidamos o representante do Canadá, embaixador Emmanuel Camara-Riarnax.
Boa tarde, good afternoon, bon après-midi tout le monde. President, Excellencies, guests, I am pleased to deliver this statement on behalf of the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada. We're meeting in Belém at a crucial moment. These past 10 years, we've come a long way together. In Paris, we agreed that our shared future depended on our shared ambition, and that we could confront the climate crisis through a cooperation, trust, and a common vision. Since then, we have collectively made further strides towards a low-carbon and climate-resilient future. But there is still much to do. The benefits of climate action and the profound impacts of climate inaction are becoming more clear every day for the well-being and health of citizens across the globe, for biodiversity, for food and energy security, and for economic security. We know that effective action starts with detailed planning. We encourage all countries to come forward with ambitious climate action and to come to COP ready for candid discussions on the progress made so far and what more we can do collectively to reach net zero. We commend Brazil for making multilateralism a priority for COP30. We must signal that climate action remains a common priority and that we will work together relentlessly to address climate change. But planning is only the first step. As governments, we must harness the ideas, the expertise, and the resources of all of our partners to deliver results. At home, the Government of Canada laid out this week its key priorities in its federal budget. These priorities include a new climate competitiveness strategy, positioning our economy to be more competitive by investing in deep decarbonization. Under this strategy, Canada is driving emissions down while investing in clean technology, innovation, and creating good-paying jobs. We are creating the right environment for Canada's industry and private sector to innovate and invest in a low-carbon future. We are reskilling and preparing Canadian workers. And we are teeing up the whole economy for the low-carbon transition. Canada comes to COP30 in the spirit of collaboration, to learn from and partner up with countries and institutions around the world to accelerate the global transition. Nous sommes déterminés à faire notre part pour mobiliser les 300 milliards de dollars convenus à la COP29 et soutenir les actions vers l'objectif élargi de 1,3 trillions de dollars Nous examinons actuellement notre prochaine enveloppe de financement climat pour la période après 2025. Pour le Canada, le soutien aux mesures d'atténuation et d'adaptation dans les pays et les communautés pauvres et vulnérables restera une priorité absolue. Et nous examinons également comment le financement climat du Canada servira à mobiliser des ressources bien au-delà des fonds publics et contribuera ainsi à accroître la finance climatique mondiale à des niveaux et à des vitesses sans précédent. Ici à Belém, nous avons hâte d'explorer des solutions concrètes pour atteindre l'objectif de 1,3 milliard de dollars américains provenant de toutes les sources d'ici 2035. Nous voulons aussi parler des autres défis liés au financement, comme les barrières à l'accès, en particulier pour les pays les moins avancés et les petits États insulaires en développement, le coût élevé du capital et le manque de cohérence dans le paysage financier mondial. Alors que nous nous rassemblons à la COP30 avec une énergie renouvelée, notre objectif ultime est clair. Il faut maintenir les hausses des températures en deçà de 1,5 degré et accélérer la résilience mondiale. Il s'agit non seulement d'un impératif moral et environnemental, mais aussi d'un investissement judicieux dans notre avenir collectif. La Convention cadre des Nations Unies sur les changements climatiques ne détient pas tous les leviers ni toutes les solutions pour mobiliser le financement de la lutte contre les changements climatiques et accélérer l'action climatique. Mais ici, nous pouvons créer de nouvelles connexions et lancer des nouvelles conversations et des nouvelles idées pour réduire l'écart entre nos ambitions et nos résultats actuels. Nous saisissons déjà cette opportunité lorsque nous parlons de climat et biodiversité, d'égalité des sexes et d'inclusion, des droits des peuples autochtones, de transition équitable et des droits des travailleurs, et bien sûr de finances climat. Le Canada est fier de faire partie de cette nouvelle forme de multilatéralisme qui apportera des résultats concrets pour tout le monde sur la planète. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado. Thank you.
Neste momento, convidamos a embaixadora da Eslováquia, Katarina Tonková.
Excelências, distintas delegações, senhoras e senhores. É uma grande honra representar a República Eslovaca nesta cúpula dos líderes da COP30. Permítanme transmitir as saudações e os melhores votos do primeiro-ministro Robert Fico, bem como nossa gratidão ao presidente Lula da Silva e ao governo do Brasil pela liderança e hospitalidade nessa conferência tão importante para o nosso futuro. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the climate emergency is no longer a distant threat. It is a daily reality for millions, and especially for the most vulnerable. COP30 is more than a conference. It is a test of political will, of moral responsibility, and of our shared humanity. The first global stocktake makes the path clear. To reduce global emissions by 60% in 10 years and reach net zero by 2050. Slovakia is fully committed to climate action and to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Since 1990, my country has reduced its emissions by more than 50%, and we want to do more. Today, Slovakia operates one of the lowest emission energy systems in the European Union, mainly powered by nuclear and hydropower. The share of low-emission energy will soon reach almost 90%, a result that speaks louder than words. But ambition and economic reality must go hand in hand. Our policies must protect jobs, competitiveness, and people's well-being. A successful green transition is one that strengthens both the environment and the economy, leaving no sector or community behind. No country can succeed alone. We need inclusive global partnership. Supporting developing countries is a moral duty. Slovakia stands by this principle, contributing 2.2 million euros to the Green Climate Fund and sharing our climate expertise through climate finance and development cooperation. Excellencies, climate change is the defining challenge of our time. Our response must be collective, coherent, and sustainable. Just transition must unite climate and social justice. Agora é o momento de agir com coragem, sabedoria e compaixão. Muito obrigada pela atenção.
Agora, neste momento, convidamos o embaixador da Etiópia, Leuceged Tadez Abeb.
Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished delegates. At the outset, I thank the government and people of Brazil for welcoming the world to Belém, a beautiful city in the Brazilian Amazon and symbolically important location for global climate action. The 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement being commemorated at the heart of Amazon, the planet's carbon vault, should propel us to meaningful climate actions. This is the time to take climate actions with a sense of urgency and renewed political commitment. While gravely concerned by the gaps in delivering commitments in climate action by some developed countries, we remain hopeful of a notable progress in achieving the Paris Agreement goals. In this regard, we commend Brazil and fully support its theme Global Mercurio that calls for a shift from pledges to concrete and collective implementation. We also thank Brazil for introducing impactful initiatives during this COP. We are also encouraged to see the submission of 64 new NDCs, despite a deepening climate crisis that continues to disproportionately impact vulnerable communities in developing countries. At this juncture, I am delighted to announce that Ethiopia has submitted an ambitious NDC that aims to reduce emissions by 70%. Excellencies, COP30 must deliver ambitious and balanced outcomes grounded in principles of justice and solidarity to put the world on the right course to effectively address climate change in all areas, including adaptation, loss and damage, climate finance, and mitigation. Equally important, it's time to forge genuine partnerships and take concrete climate actions and solutions. Ethiopia has long pursued forward-looking policy on building a climate-resilient economy. Africa has also assumed leadership by advancing climate solutions. Such was exhibited at the second Africa Climate Summit, where the continent outlined its leadership through actionable commitments in innovation, finance, energy transition, critical mineral development, restoration of nature, and emergency preparedness. The Addis Ababa Declaration is a bold testament to Africa's resolve and a clear message that Africa stands as a committed partner and a driving force in our shared mission to address the continued impacts of climate change. Excellencies, allow me to outline key imperatives for COP30. First, the most important climate action originates at home. Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative, pioneered by His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, has achieved concrete results by planting 48 billion, yes, 48 billion tree seedlings over 7 years period. The multitude of similar initiatives across Africa are prime examples for tangible climate actions and solutions. Ethiopia's bold move to greening its transportation sector is reducing dependence on fossil fuels, resulting in massive reduction in emissions. That's why we say Ethiopia is leading by example. We therefore encourage all developing countries to start from home by taking climate actions that center on community mobilization and the use of domestic resources. Second, the devastating impacts of climate change cannot be addressed unless there is a breakthrough in delivering means of implementation for all pillars of the Paris Agreement. All financing commitments should be delivered in grant-based and non-debt generating concessional finance. The Loss and Damage Fund also needs to be urgently capitalized. We also call for the operationalization of the Baku to Belém roadmap to mobilize 1.3 trillion USD to close the financing gap, while ensuring a balanced allocation between mitigation and adaptation finance. Third, on energy transition, we should honor the COP28 commitments by tripling renewable energy investment for Africa's share of the global 60 billion USD energy investment from just 2% to 20% by 2030. Furthermore, we wish to underscore the urgent need to ensure fair, sustainable and just supply of chains of critical minerals that are key for the development of zero and low emission energy technologies. Excellencies, it is my great honor and pleasure to announce to this August Assembly Ethiopia's bid to host COP32 in 2027 in Addis Ababa, the diplomatic capital of Africa. The government of Ethiopia has already begun preparations, mobilizing leadership, institutions and partnerships to ensure a successful and historic summit in Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa, home to the African Union, the UN Economic Commission for Africa and over 160 diplomatic missions, avails seamless air connectivity and excellent track record of hosting major conferences. I therefore humbly request your support to bring COP to Africa once again. Finally, Excellencies, allow me to close by joining His Excellency President Lula da Silva in his declaration that is COP30 shall be a conference for truth. Truth that should lead us to realize our commitment is measured not by the promises we make, but by the actions we take to address the devastating consequences of climate change. The time to act is now. I thank you, Excellencies.
Nesse momento, convido para a manifestação o embaixador da Geórgia, Zurabi, Mishedlishvili.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is particular honor to address you on behalf of the delegation of Georgia. And at the outset, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the government of Federative Republic of Brazil for the wonderful hospitality and honorable efforts that have made the COP30 a true success. Distinguished delegates, at the critical juncture as we mark the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, it is vital to celebrate what we have already achieved together. From bending the emission curve to operationalizing the loss and damage fund, these achievements stand as a statement to our collective efforts to combat the climate change. Acknowledging this progress is not complacency. It is reaffirmation of the Paris spirit and a reminder that multilateral climate action delivers results. At the COP30, Georgia will advocate for an outcome that balances urgency with recognition, anchoring our collective efforts in the tools that drive implementation and shape a resilient, decarbonizing future for all. Georgia will support a consensus outcome that acknowledges the ambition implementation gap and commits us to closing through the instrument already agreed under the Paris Agreement. Nationally determined contributions are not absent pledges. They are the operation blueprint for climate action. Delivering of them requires a coordinating push across ambition, adaptation, finance, and technology. Georgia cautioned against reopening the ambition cycle. Instead, we must focus on delivering what we have promised using every tool at our disposal. Georgia is preparing its own national adaptation plan and encourages others to do the same, recognizing the resilience is inspirable for the credibility for our climate commitments. Georgia welcomes the Baku to Belém roadmap to $1.3 trillion and calls for it to both credible and inspiring. We support a strong signal of adaptation finance, including consideration of a new goal post 2025. The continuation of the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue is essential to aligning finance flow with low emission, climate resilient development at COP30. Georgia will work to ensure that climate finance delivery clarity, momentum, and trust, empowering countries to turn the NDC into tangible outcomes. Ambition, adaptation, finance, and technology are all connected. They work together to help countries deliver on their climate promises, known as NDS. Their tools are not separated pieces. They support each other and must be used side by side to make real progress. Georgia is ready to help shape in COP30 outcomes that brings this effort together, building a future when our economy grows without harming the planet and our communities are stronger and safer in the face of climate change. While we commit to addressing the ongoing climate crisis, conflict worldwide continue to disrupt and slow global efforts in the direction. Due to the occupation of Georgia's Abkhazia and Skhin Valley region, the government of Georgia is enabled to implement measures to severe consequences of climate change in those regions, which consist of 20% of Georgia territories. Georgia welcomes the COP30 presidency effort to connect the action agenda with the result of the global stocktake. This is a crucial step to move from word in action, turning, negotiate, decision into real program on the ground. We believe these 6 thematic axes should lead to a clear and unified signal of how far we have come and where we need to go. For Georgia, the action agenda is not a side activity. It is a powerful tool to boost ambition and make climate effort more effective. We stand ready to contribute to a result-driven, inclusive and forward-looking outcome of the COP30. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Agora convidamos para a manifestação o embaixador da Grécia, Ioannis Tsisovas Morousis.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas, excelências, autoridades, colegas, amigas y amigos todos. J'ai suivi avec beaucoup d'attention les discours de nos leaders et des présidents et des premiers ministres. Je suis arrivé à la conclusion qu'il y a une espèce d'embarras général. On ne sait pas exactement où on en est. Et le pire, où on veut aller. Il y a plein de contradictions. Nous avons fait campagne pendant des années, pendant des décennies, pour les énergies propres. Et maintenant, comme les choses ont changé, surtout aux États-Unis, nous allons nous adapter aux nouvelles conditions et nous allons suivre une route différente. Drill, baby, drill. Je crois qu'il faut qu'on prenne des décisions et s'y tenir et ne pas changer tous les 3 ans notre politique. On m'avait préparé un discours très long. Je ne lirai pas, ce sont 10 pages. À la place, je vous dirai quelques aspects de la politique de la Grèce à propos de notre sujet de changement climatique. Hier, à Athènes, nous avons reçu la visite de 4 ministres des États-Unis. Ministre d'énergie, économie, intérieur. Le but de la visite était de voir avec les autorités de mon pays des moyens de faire de la Grèce l'entrée du gaz naturel liquéfié, gas natural licuado. La idea es que barcos de los armadores griegos, metaneros, de bateaux metaneros, van a transportar el gas licuado de Estados Unidos para Grecia, 2 puertos adaptados, y después desde la Grecia para toda Europa oriental. Y nous avons signé des contrats dans ce sens avec les autorités des États-Unis. Alors le LNG, c'est un combustible qui est un combustible de transition. Ce n'est pas définitif. C'est pour passer avec aisance à l'usage des énergies propres. Donc la politique de mon pays, donc, c'est une transition juste, graduelle et efficace, qui ne mette pas en cause les équilibres sociaux et géopolitiques. Greece is fully committed to ensuring the compliance of EU policy and the objectives of Paris Agreement and the European Climate Law. Specifically, Greece is committed to implement the EU legal framework Fit for 55 set of proposals with the aim of ensuring that policies are in line with reduction of net GHG emissions of EU by at least 55% at the least by 2030, in comparison with 1990 levels. So our emissions in Greece are down 45% in comparison with 2005. And lignite used to provide much more than 50% of our power generation is share today is just 6%. Our commitments to equip by 2030 at least 12 ports, 12 harbors in Greece with cold ironing and their simultaneous transformation to energy hubs will assist the decarbonization of the shipping sector, which is very important in my country. So we will decrease the emission and as well the climate change mitigation will take place. So, la conclusion, nous allons continuer notre politique énergétique et notre politique de changement climatique en accord avec l'Union européenne et avec tout ce qui a été dit hier par la présidente de la Commission européenne, Ursula von der Leyen, et par le président du Conseil, Antonio Costa. Thank you very much.
Chamamos agora o embaixador Mibala Alfredo Fernandes de Guiné-Bissau.
Boa tarde a todos. Gostaria em primeiro lugar de saudar a todos os que estão aqui nesta sala, bem acolhedora, até esta tarde para podermos falar daquilo que nos trouxe aqui de vários cantos do mundo, que é a COP30. Quero aqui cumprimentar todas as autoridades presentes nesta sala, autoridades civis e militares e todo o protocolo que nos foi reservado até este momento pelas autoridades brasileiras. É com grande honra que a Guiné-Bissau toma a palavra nessa 30ª Conferência das Partes da Convenção 4 das Nações Unidas sobre as Mudanças Climáticas aqui em Belém, símbolo da maior floresta e da nossa responsabilidade comum partilhada a nível do planeta. Em nome da Sua Excelência, Senhor Presidente da República da Guiné-Bissau, General Umar Sissoko Embalo, que não pode estar aqui neste momento por agenda nacional, gostaria, eu e a minha delegação aqui presente, de expressar o nosso profundo agradecimento ao Estado brasileiro e ao povo brasileiro pela hospitalidade e pela forma como paraenses nos acolheram aqui nesta cidade, que vai marcar uma viragem da política climática no mundo. Muito obrigado ao povo do Pará, muito obrigado Amazônia. Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, a Guiné-Bissau é um país costeiro, situado na África Ocidental, mas enfrenta grandes vulnerabilidades: a subida do nível do mar, a erosão costeira, a perda de biodiversidade e o impacto das secas e inundações nas comunidades rurais. Apesar dessas dificuldades, o nosso país mantém um compromisso firme com o Acordo de Paris e com o desenvolvimento sustentável. Estamos a concluir a 4ª Comunicação Nacional e o 2º Relatório Bienal de Transferência, reafirmando o nosso empenho na transferência climática. Executamos projetos estruturantes, como o projeto Coastal, o Aqua e o projeto de reforço de capacidade e de adaptação de resiliência, que fortalecem a proteção das zonas costeiras nacionais e melhoram a vida das nossas populações. Reforçamos igualmente a aposta nas energias renováveis, sobretudo a energia solar, para reduzir a dependência de combustíveis fósseis. Excelências, estes esforços nacionais exigem apoio financeiro previsível e justo. A Guiné-Bissau apela para que a COP30 seja um marco na implementação efetiva do novo objetivo global do financiamento climático, com recursos adequados, acessíveis aos países mais vulneráveis. Defendemos também o reconhecimento dos serviços ecossistêmicos prestados pelos nossos ecossistemas, florestas, mangás e zonas úmidas, verdadeiros pulmões de carbono do planeta. Acreditamos firmemente no papel da juventude e das mulheres como agentes centrais da ação climática e reafirmamos a nossa determinação em construir uma transição ecológica justa, inclusiva e solidária. Senhoras e senhores, que a COP30 em Belém, aqui no Pará, seja um ponto de viragem, um momento em que a comunidade internacional transforma promessas em ações concretas e a justiça climática seja uma realidade. Muito obrigado a todos.
Chamamos neste momento o embaixador da Índia, Dinesh Bhatia.
Namaskar, boa tarde. Let me begin by complimenting Brazil for hosting COP30, coinciding with the 10th anniversary of Paris Agreement, a crucial milestone. This is an opportunity to reflect on our response to the challenge of global warming. It is also an opportunity to celebrate the 33-year legacy of the Rio Summit, where the UNFCCC Convention principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities were adopted, laying the foundation for the international climate regime, including the Paris Agreement that continues to guide our collective action. Over the past decade, India has consistently striven to drive its development along a low-carbon pathway. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, India has steadily met its climate targets ahead of schedule. Between 2005 and 2020, we reduced the emission intensity of GDP by 36%, and this trend continues. Non-fossil power installed capacity now accounts for over 50% of our total installed capacity, enabling us to reach our revised NDC target 5 years ahead of schedule. India has not only conserved but also expanded its forests and tree cover, which now stands at 25.17% of the total geographical area, witnessing the third highest annual net gain as per the FAO's Global Forest Resources Assessment 2025, creating an additional carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons of carbon dioxide, equivalent from 2005 to 2021. With around 200 gigawatt of renewable energy, India is now the world's third largest producer of renewable energy, while ambitious programs in solar, wind, green hydrogen and biofuels are transforming its energy landscape. The International Solar Alliance, launched globally by India and France in 2015, now unites over 120 countries, promoting affordable solar energy and South-South collaboration. 10 years after the Paris Agreement, global ambition remains inadequate. Many nations' indices fall short. While developing countries continue to take decisive climate action, developed countries that have disproportionately appropriated the global carbon budget must accelerate emission reductions and deliver the promised adequate and predictable support. Given the rapid depletion of the meager remaining carbon budget, developed countries must reach net zero much sooner than they have declared and invest substantially in reaching net negative emissions. While mitigation is important, it is equally important to focus attention on adaptation to address climate risk and vulnerabilities at the local level, more so in developing countries. For developing nations like India, access to affordable finance, technology and capacity building is vital to implement ambitious NDCs. Equitable, predictable and concessional climate finance remains the cornerstone for achieving global climate goals. On the occasion of COP30, India reaffirms its commitment to multilateralism and towards preserving and safeguarding the architecture of the Paris Agreement, built on the foundations of the Convention. As a firm believer in climate action, we stand ready to collaborate with all nations to implement solutions and transition to sustainability in ways that are ambitious, inclusive, fair and equitable, based on the principles of CBDR, RC and national circumstances, thereby ensuring that climate action uplifts communities globally, protects livelihoods and honors the principles of justice and equity. India welcomes and supports Brazil's initiative in establishing the Tropical Forests Forever Facility, representing a significant step towards collective and sustained global action for the preservation of tropical forests. India is pleased to join the facility as an observer. Finally, together, let us ensure that the next decade of climate action is defined not only by targets, but by implementation, resilience, and shared responsibility based on mutual trust and fairness. Thank you, dhanyavad, namaskar, muito obrigado.
Convidamos neste momento o embaixador do Líbano, Elias Nicolá.
Mr. President, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the President of the Republic of Lebanon, His Excellency General Joseph Aoun, allow me first to convey to the government and people of Brazil our sincere gratitude and deepest appreciation for hosting this important conference and for their continued commitment to advancing the goals we collectively set a decade ago in Paris. As we gather here in the heart of the Amazon, under the theme Delivering on Implementation, this COP marks an important milestone in our shared journey. It's a moment to move from promises to practice, from ambition to delivery. As our common challenges are getting more pressing, our credibility now depends on what we achieve together, on the actions we take, the systems we strengthen, and the trust we rebuild through tangible progress on the ground. Our summit today is a clear testimony that multilateralism is still standing and attuned to the necessity of scaling up the efforts towards the UN SDGs. Lebanon continues to face severe political, economic, social, and environmental challenges that have tested its resilience. Yet, despite these hardships, Lebanon has not wavered in its climate commitments. Over the past year, we finalized our newest national determined contribution, our national adaptation plan, and our long-term low-emission development strategy, a comprehensive policy package that aligns climate ambition with recovery and sustainable development. In our updated NDC, Lebanon has increased its ambition, committing to reducing national greenhouse gas emissions by 22% unconditionally and 33% conditionally, compared to a business-as-usual scenario by 2035. It also commits to meeting 25% of national electricity demand from renewable energy sources unconditionally and 30% conditionally by 2035. On adaptation, Lebanon has identified 8 priority sectors, that is agriculture, forestry, water, biodiversity, urban infrastructure, public health, disaster risk reduction, and tourism, thus emphasizing protection of lives and livelihoods, the strengthening of institutions, and the mainstreaming of climate action across all key sectors. Lebanon progress, however, has been overshadowed by the dire consequences of chronic instability, hostility, and repeated aggressions against its territory and its sovereignty. The economy has contracted by over 40% since 2018, let alone the most recent aggression that inflicted an estimated $6.8 billion in direct damage and up to $11 billion in reconstruction and recovery needs, according to the World Bank Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment report this year. These crises have also caused extensive environmental degradation, reversing years of effort to safeguard biodiversity, forests, and productive lands. Environmental losses amount to around 720 million, primarily driven by the conflict's impact on natural ecosystems, with recovery and reconstruction needs for environmental damage alone estimated at 444 million by 2030. These sad facts remind us that peace, stability, and environmental protection are deeply interconnected, and that climate resilience must be pursued hand in hand with human security and peace efforts. To enable countries under strain not to lag behind when it comes to realizing the objectives we all aim at, predictable and accessible climate finance remains indispensable. The Loss and Damage Fund must become fully operational, with direct access for vulnerable countries, and the new global finance goal beyond 2025 must guarantee equitable and transparent support for developing nations. Such mechanisms are essential for rebuilding resilience, scaling renewable energy, and advancing adaptation efforts on the ground. At the same time, the global goal on adaptation must move beyond dialogue to delivery. For Lebanon, this means securing the means of implementation to act on our national priorities and operationalize our LD-LADs through cleaner energy, sustainable transport, and waste-to-energy transitions, all while ensuring that our path toward decarbonization remains just and inclusive. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Lebanon's message today is clear. Lebanon's message today is clear. Despite all the constraints we face, we continue to plan, to reform, and to act. Climate action for Lebanon is not separate from recovery. It is at the heart of it. As we deliberate in Belém, let us make COP30 the moment when ambition is matched by implementation and solidarity by action. The world expects results, and it's our collective duty to deliver on them. Thank you. Obrigado.
Nesse momento, convidamos o representante do Panamá, embaixador Flávio Mendes.
Buenas tardes. En reconocimiento del presidente de Panamá, José Raúl Mulino Quintero, hago un reconocimiento al Gobierno de Brasil y a la Organización de Naciones Unidas por acogernos para hoy celebrar la Conferencia de las Naciones Unidas para el Cambio Climático aquí en Belém do Pará, ciudad testigo de grandes logros multilaterales como fue la adopción del Tratado Interamericano de 1994 para prevenir, sancionar y erradicar la violencia contra la mujer. Aprovechando que tuve la oportunidad en la infancia, por ser hijo de diplomáticos, de aprender el idioma portugués y luego estudios posteriores, me motiva a interpretar el discurso en portugués para poder compartir con la mayor fidelidad posible el mensaje del pueblo panameño al pueblo belenense y brasilero que nos ha acogido con tanta afección. Estamos vivendo tempos de grandes retos que convergem à aceleração da mudança do clima, à persistência da pobreza, à falta de oportunidade, o surgimento de riscos sanitários e tecnológicos de alcance global. Estes fenômenos transacionais, por natureza, nos obrigam a reconhecer que nenhum Estado, por si só, está em capacidade de dar resposta a estes retos. As magnitudes dessas ameaças exigem mecanismos de cooperação internacional capazes de atuar com eficácia em defesa da sustentabilidade do planeta. A natureza não espera. O Panamá também não. O Panamá atua com urgência e com coerência, unificando ciência, a política e o território. Atuamos não por conveniência, mas por convicção, porque cada bosque que se perde, cada recife de corais que se branqueia, cada lar que se inunda, nos lembra que o custo da inação já é alto demais. Durante décadas, o mundo tem tentado avançar na luta contra a mudança do clima, na proteção da biodiversidade e do manejo sostenível da terra, como se fossem 3 caminhos separados. Esse enfoque tem nos custado muito tempo e muita eficiência. Em Panamá, estamos fazendo as coisas de outra maneira, ou como dizem no Rio, de outro jeito. Por essa razão, estamos apresentando o Nature Pledge, pacto que une nossos compromissos em matéria de clima, biodiversidade e terras. É uma forma nova de entender a política ambiental e climática. Na prática, Panamá se compromete a fazer uma redução adicional dos 11% de emissões por ano até o ano antes do ano 2035. Nos orgulhece informar que Panamá chegou e superou 9 anos antes o que foi acordado nas metas 30 por 30. Hoje em dia, 35% do nosso território está protegido. 54% dos nossos mares estão protegidos. Porém, nós não vamos nos deter aí. Nós nos comprometemos a restaurar 100 mil hectares adicionais de ecossistemas prioritários. Para conseguir isto, estamos alinhando nossos fluxos financeiros para ações coordenadas aos temas do clima, da biodiversidade e da terra. Vamos fortalecer corredores biológicos, garantir a conservação das nossas áreas protegidas e assegurar a conservação de espécies em perigo de extinção. Queremos também reconhecer que isto não seria possível sem quem não são os que protegeram a nossa natureza muito antes que existissem tratados e convenções, os povos indígenas do Panamá. 24% do nosso território é protegido por eles, com a sabedoria ancestral que guia hacia uma convivência harmoniosa com a terra. Excelências, a divisão mundial nos tem feito trabalhar muito lentamente. A integração é que garante a efetividade oportuna. Com o Nature Pledge, o projeto que estamos promovendo, queremos demonstrar que é possível unir compromissos internacionais com uma ação nacional efetiva e imediata, para que seja a base de um desenvolvimento mais justo e próspero. A verdadeira ambição climática não está em acumular documentos dispersos, está em ter a valentia de construir uma agenda comum. Por isso, para esta COP, impulsaremos um documento único, cujo formato facilite aos países em desenvolvimento a acceder aos principais fundos multilaterais e ambientais. Também por um mecanismo de perdas e danos com uma coordenação efetiva e por um plano de ação interseccional onde ninguém vai ficar atrás. Quero fechar este discurso com uma anedota pessoal. Quando eu estava preparando a visita da nossa delegação para a COP em Glasgow, eu recebi uma ligação do Ministério de Ambiente indicando que nós éramos carbono negativo, coisa que não entendi nesse momento, porque sempre estava ouvindo do carbono neutro. Quando eu perguntei como é que tínhamos chegado a isso, a esse patamar, eles responderam: bom, não foi uma decisão só, tem sido um comportamento natural do povo panamenho ao longo do século. É no dia a dia, decisões de políticos, de pessoas comuns, sociedade civil, de que cada vez que tomava uma decisão, sempre pensava no bem comum ou no meio ambiente. Aliás, essa pessoa me lembrou que eu tinha começado, depois de me formar aqui no Brasil, quando cheguei ao Panamá, meu primeiro trabalho foi na ONG, que se chamava Associação Nacional para a Conservação da Natureza. Ou seja, que como diplomata, antes de ser diplomata, comecei a trabalhar como conservação. Mas isso é só para poder dar uma dica que o panamenho, por natureza, é assim. Nós pensamos que é normal proteger o ambiente. Então, a mensagem com esta anedota é que eu acho que não é só fazer todas as coisas que como governo estamos tentando fazer,
mas também homologar o cidadão panamenho comum com essas decisões de dia a dia que tem feito que o Panamá tenha essa posição tão privilegiada com o resto do mundo. E eu convido a vocês a pensar como nós, como o Panamá. Muito obrigado.
Convidamos agora representante da Polônia, o embaixador Andrzej Trzaskowski.
Your Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, esteemed delegates, honored guests. First of all, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to Brazil for hosting this summit and for leading the Conference of the Parties this year. Poland wishes you every success and stands ready to work closely with you to achieve it. Poland knows this process very well. We hosted 3 conferences of the parties, in 2008 in Poznan, 2013 in Warsaw, and 2018 in Katowice, each time striving to make negotiations practical, transparent, and connected to real life. Our work has been and remains at the very heart of this system. Climate change remains one of the defining challenges of our time. We agree on the fundamental importance of multilateral cooperation and recognize the undeniable value of the Paris Agreement. That agreement provided us with a universal framework for climate action. It brought us instruments designed to guide implementation. And yet we must also acknowledge that while the direction is right, our collective effort still falls short in ambition, in financing, and in implementation. The details will be taken up by our negotiators in the coming weeks. We may differ in our approaches, but Poland believes that as long as we continue to listen to each other and to compromise, we will find a way forward. Global progress, still insufficient, is visible. In 2025, renewables overtook coal as the world's main source of electricity. That milestone is not symbolic, it is historic. There are projections that global demand for coal, oil, and gas may start falling in this decade. Such results came from rules, institutions, policies, and cooperation, from the essence of multilateralism. This process is working, and our collective work is making a difference. Clearly, the Paris Agreement delivers, and so does Poland. Poland takes the challenge of climate change very seriously. Our favorite word is pragmatism, and in this spirit we consequently and responsibly deliver on our commitments. For decades, our energy system was heavily reliant on coal, but over recent years, policy shifts, technological progress, and rapid deployment of wind and solar have transformed our energy mix. This year, renewables in Poland produced more electricity than coal. In the next 10 years, Poland is planning a comprehensive transformation of its energy system. The goal is to make it clean, diverse, reliable, with nuclear power and renewables at its core. This transformation strengthens not only our climate policy, but also our energy security and economic resilience, and ability to adapt to climate change. We believe that just and resilient energy transition will help us to build a sustainable future. Poland's example shows that economic growth, energy transition, and climate adaptation are not the opposing goals. They can progress together. Yet, we know that no country can face the climate crisis alone. It's a global challenge that demands a truly global response. Poland remains fully committed to this process, the one we have helped to shape, and to working with all partners towards a fair, effective, and successful energy transition. Together we can achieve more. Together we can deliver. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado.
Convidamos agora representante da República da Coreia, o embaixador Yong-han Choi.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good afternoon, boa tarde. It is a great honor to attend the Belém Climate Summit at COP30 and to speak on behalf of the government of the Republic of Korea. Today, we gather at a critical moment as the climate crisis accelerates. Last year, for the first time, the global average temperature rise exceeded 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Climate disasters are becoming more frequent, hard to predict, and increasingly devastating in their impact and scale. Faced with these realities, our collective response and cooperation have never been more crucial. The Republic of Korea expresses its deep appreciation to the COP30 presidency for its leadership and dedication in preparing for today's summit. As we mark the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, the coming 2 weeks represent a defining moment to reaffirm our shared resolve to strengthen global climate action. In particular, COP30 should serve as the bridge where ambition transforms into implementation. With the first global stocktake in 2023 and the submission of the first biennial transparency reports and 2035 nationally determined contributions this year, the Paris Agreement ambition cycle is now fully underway. While progress has been made in lowering projected temperature increases, the NDC synthesis report indicates that further acceleration of climate action is needed to keep the 1.5 degrees goal within reach. Therefore, at COP30, we must address both the ambition and implementation gaps and send a unified signal of determination to translate our pledges into concrete action. The Korean government is committed to contributing to this process by placing climate action and energy transition at the core of our national agenda. Korea remains steadfast in the implementation of our 2030 NDC, and at the same time, we are formulating an ambitious and implementable 2035 NDC and developing a mid to long-term emission reduction roadmap beyond 2035 as a forward-looking milestone toward carbon neutrality by 2050. Our 2035 NDC target is now in its final stage of confirmation, and we look forward to announcing it in the coming weeks. The Korean government is also committed to addressing the interlinkages between climate and energy. The establishment of the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Environment well reflects this mandate. We are pursuing a major energy transition centered on renewables and aim to enhance energy efficiency and connectivity by leveraging technologies such as artificial intelligence, energy storage systems, and a more resilient power grid. national action alone is not enough. Implementation must extend beyond borders. Through contributions to multilateral organizations such as the Green Climate Fund and the Global Green Growth Institute, and continuing support through Green ODA, Korea is supporting developing countries in adaptation and green transition, demonstrating that climate action is both a global task requiring joint efforts and a new opportunity for prosperity. Moreover, as the host of APEC 2025, Korea will continue to work together not only within our region, but also beyond, towards the vision of building a sustainable tomorrow. Lastly, it is deeply meaningful that COP30 is being held in the Amazon, reminding us of our shared responsibility for preserving nature and advancing climate action. COP30 can be an opportunity to highlight the importance of synergies across climate, oceans, and biodiversity, which deserve greater attention as they are essential for delivering core benefits for adaptation and mitigation. In particular, Korea will work towards advancing the ocean climate agenda by hosting the 4th United Nations Ocean Conference in 2028, together with Chile. We hope that Muchiraum, the spirit of solidarity and cooperation rooted in the indigenous traditions of Brazil, will bring us together to reinvigorate multilateralism. The Republic of Korea stands ready to work with all parties toward a successful COP30, one that will be remembered as the moment when ambition turned into implementation and confidence in multilateralism was renewed. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado.
Convidamos agora representante da Sérvia, o embaixador Aleksandar Ristic.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Eu gostaria de agradecer ao povo brasileiro, ao governo brasileiro, também ao povo e governo paraense pela calorosa recepção e pela esta oportunidade de conhecer essa região linda e rica e diversa. Dear colleagues, Excellencies, we'd like to extend our gratitude to the President of Brazil, His Excellency Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, for having the vision to organize this conference in Belém, this beautiful place where we are witnessing today that the importance of maintaining the Amazon ecosystem as it literally secures the future of our civilization. Since Rio 1992, the perils, dangers, and challenges of advancing climate change grew on a yearly basis. Extreme weather events, violent storms, unprecedented hurricanes, and massive floods, as well as forest wildfires, became the norm and not the exception. Serbia is located in southeastern Europe, in a geographic area that is affected in an above-average manner by climate change. Over the past 5 years, the mean annual temperature has been 2.5 degrees higher than the baseline, with consecutive record-breaking year after year. Droughts, heat waves, floods, and extreme storms have intensified, causing over 10 billion euros in losses since year 2000, including 1 billion euros in the summer of 2024 alone, when 92% of our territory suffered from severe drought. Not to mention the floods of 2014 that we are still recovering from, one of the reasons why the Serbian people expressed its solidarity with the people of Rio Grande do Sul, because we know the best what the floods can do in our nations. These impacts threaten our agriculture, water resources, forests, biodiversity, public health, and infrastructure. As a country where agriculture remains vital for food security and economic stability, we are deeply aware that the adaptation is not an option, it is a necessity. We call Serbia a small country, but I've learned from my colleagues from other European countries of the same size that we should drop this designation and call ourselves well-optimized and compact countries. But yet, we have an energy sector which still relies on domestic lignite, but we have a commitment to global action for sure. This year, in September, the government of the Republic of Serbia adopted our third national determined contribution, and it reflects our new level of ambition while also confirming our intending mitigation trajectory. The third Serbian NDC of September this year, we have committed to an economy-wide emission reduction target of 40.1% by 2035 compared to 1990 levels, or 46.7% when including land use. Given the need to ensure a just and inclusive energy transition, our target is conditional and will depend on the availability of financial resources and technical assistance. Our message today is clear. Despite our size and developing economy, Serbia stands firmly with the global community in pursuing a climate-resilient, low-carbon future, one that is fair, ambitious, and built on solidarity. I thank you very much. Muito obrigado.
Neste momento, convidamos para a manifestação o embaixador do Sudão, Arnab Goswami.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. فخامة السيد لويس إيناسيو لولا دا سيلفا رئيس جمهورية البرازيل الاتحادية، أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، الرؤساء ورؤساء الحكومات، السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يطيب لي باسم رئيس مجلس السيادة الفريق أول عبد الفتاح البرهان وحكومة وشعب السودان أن أعرب عن خالص الشكر والتقدير لحكومة وشعب البرازيل الصديق على كرم الاستضافة وحسن التنظيم لهذه القمة التاريخية التي تنعقد في قلب الأمازون، رمز التنوع البيئي وكنز الإنسانية المشترك. كما نثمن الجهود المخلصة التي تبذلها سكرتارية اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية بشأن التغير المناخ وكافة الشركاء الدوليين الساعين إلى مستقبل أكثر أمنا واستدامة لكوكبنا. السيدات والسادة، يواجه السودان اليوم آثارا مركبة للتغير المناخي تتجلى في تدهور البيئة والنظم الإيكولوجية نتيجة ما قامت به الميليشيا المتمردة من تدمير لأهم مناطق التنوع الحيوي، بما في ذلك الغابات النيلية مثل غابة الصمت والمنشآت الصناعية ومستودعات النفط، مما أدى إلى تلوث الهواء والمياه بالمواد الكيميائية وارتفاع غير مسبوق في درجات الحرارة، إلى جانب موجات الجفاف والتصحر المتكررة والفيضانات المدمرة التي تهدد سبل كسب العيش والأمن الغذائي لملايين المواطنين. وليس خافيا أن التغير المناخ لم يعد قضية بيئية فحسب، بل أصبح قضية تنمية وحياة وكرامة وسيادة وطنية، إذ تؤدي التدخلات البشرية في الصراعات المسلحة التي تفاقم هشاشة الدول وتنزف مواردها. ومن هذا المنطلق يدعو السودان إلى مواقف دولية أكثر تضامنا وإنصافا في مواجهة هذه التحديات، استنادا إلى مبادئ اتفاق باريس للمناخ ومبدأ المسؤوليات المشتركة وتحقيق العدالة في التنمية والتحول الأخضر. سيدات والسادة، رغم الظروف الاستثنائية التي تمر بها بلادنا، فإن السودان يواصل التزامه الثابت بأهداف اتفاقية المناخ، ويسعى بجدية إلى تنفيذ خططه الوطنية الرامية إلى معالجة آثار التغير المناخي في قطاعات الزراعة والطاقة والمياه من خلال التحول نحو الطاقة المتجددة والنظيفة، وإعادة تأهيل الغابات واستزراعها، وتطوير أساليب الإنتاج الزراعي لتعزيز الأمن الغذائي ضمن مسار إعادة الإعمار والتعافي الوطني وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. إن السودان وهو عضو فاعل في المجموعة الأفريقية ومجموعة ال77 والصين التي يؤكد دعمه لمواقفهما المشتركة، يدعو الدول المتقدمة إلى الوفاء بتعهداتها الدولية المتعلقة بالتمويل المناخي ونقل التكنولوجيا وبناء القدرات. فجهود الدول النامية ستظل محدودة دون دعم عادل ومستدام يضمن قدرتها على التكيف والتحول